You are an independent broker. One of the desk managers approaches you and tries to get information from you about stop orders in your deck. This firm is one of your best customers, accounting for 50% of your business. What do you do?
Let me ask the simple question first. Can you divulge the order in your deck? Let me hear from everyone, because even I, as an outsider, know the answer to this. No, you cannot. Now, let's go to a bit more sophisticated approach to it. Will the desk manager, or can the desk manager, get into trouble for the solicitation of the information? So now it's like we're rounding it off. You, as the broker, can get into trouble for divulging. Can the desk manager, the one who wants the information, they're not covered by the word divulging, obviously, but can they get into trouble for soliciting? Again, even I, as an outsider after 5 years, have learned the answer to this. What say all of you? You're absolutely right. The desk manager cannot solicit the information, and they cannot hide behind a notion of, I didn't do anything wrong. Here at the CBOT, there is a specific rule, 350.05D. See, even as an outsider, I learn something. There's a specific rule that mentions and has right within its language both the prohibition against the divulging of information and the solicitation of the information. So now I ask you, we've been speaking for about a minute or two. The answer to this seems patently easy. You can't divulge, you can't solicit, you'll get into trouble. Are we finished with this hypothetical? No, I think not either. Because what I really want to know is, what would you do in real life? Real life is not like an ethics class where the answers are easy. Real life is not a situation where there are no responsibilities or nothing that happens as a result of the things that we do. So what I'd want to know is, what would you do in real life? I must tell you and confess that most of the time I pray that no one will ever come to me as a criminal defense attorney with a request for a bribe or anything else like that, because I sometimes say, God, I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to get involved in messy situations. And I pray mostly that my size, 6'1½", my weight, depending on when you see me, between 190 to 210, shall we say, will keep people away from me, because otherwise I'm afraid I might be like what I call a moral coward. So, sir or madam, what I might do is I'd ignore them. The desk manager comes to me, I would ignore them. I would make believe I'm going to the restroom, I'm going to the restaurant, I'm finished for the day, I'm off to the East Bank Club, and I would pray they would not come back. But real life doesn't work that way all the time, does it? So they come back to you now, and what I want to know is what you would do. All right, you tell me, no, I won't give them the information. No, I won't solicit. Well, that's very easy, but let me put it to you this way. You moved down from Minneapolis, you came here from Kansas City, you're now here at the CBOT. You've paid a year's lease on a lovely apartment at Lakeshore Drive. You've paid tuition at Park or Latin or any of the fine private schools here in Chicago, and this happens to you, and you know, as the hypothetical says, it's 50% of your fledgling business. What would you do? Would you puff out your ethical chest and say, "Be gone, bother me no more"? Well, that's kind of hard now, isn't it? What would you do? You know you can't do it, but what would you do? You, here, right here, what would you do? You look like someone about my size. Would you feel comfortable confronting them? Would you say to them, "Look, I'm sorry"? Right, that's what you're saying. "Look, I'm sorry, you know I can't do it," and you explain it as well as you can. And if they're going to be decent about it, they might even say, I was just trying to test you to see whether or not you would do something. I really wasn't serious about it, so that makes you feel like the moral coward now. Or what if they say, oh, you know, I'm really sorry. I apologize. I won't do something like this again. Would that satisfy you at this point? Do you think that you've made any ethical mistakes by saying, okay, I accept your apology. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again? Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it would be perfectly okay at this particular point. You haven't divulged anything. You don't want to be that hard on people. It's all right. And so you let it go from there. But real life, it goes on. And what does happen? 2 weeks later, they come back to you with the same request. So your ethical chest, your ethical puffing, your everything didn't work out at all. What would you do now? Oh, you would want to give them another break and say, okay, now I'm really serious about it, and I don't want you to do it again. All right, but you wouldn't go to anyone else. All right, well, many of us in the room here probably feel like what I would call John Wayne, the lonely American hero. I can handle these problems on my own, but here, once, an apology, they came back again, you confronted them again, and yet a third time, they come back to you. What would you do now? Take them out into the hallway and beat them up? Would you go to someone else at this particular point? Would there be a feeling that I can't handle this on their own? Now, it's who we are. It's part of our personality or something like that. What would you do? Well, go to my example again. I've been on the faculty at the law school for 16 years now. And before that, I was a practicing criminal defense attorney. When I first moved to the city, there was more that I didn't know than I did know, and I picked out a mentor and would ask them questions and I would ask for advice. Would you feel comfortable asking a more experienced broker, a member of your family, a cousin, or just a friend, or just simply a mentor on what you would do at this particular point? Well, let me ask you this. What's the line from speaking to a mentor to going to someone else and reporting what has taken place? How do you feel about that? Forget there's a deep part of American culture portrayed in films and literature and everything like that. You can go back to the beginning of Marlon Brando's career on the waterfront. Robert De Niro's first movie that he directed, A Bronx Tale, dealt with those kinds of issues. But this isn't the movies, is it? This is real life now. And you are fortunate in that you are one of the last professions that is self-regulating, and we do have an obligation to, wouldn't you agree, to clean our own house, to make sure that things like this don't happen. Would you feel comfortable having someone like the desk manager here at the CBOT on a permanent basis? So maybe we can't handle it on our own. The question becomes, who would you go to? And it seems to me we have a number of extremes that we could do. You could, you don't have to, go outside the building. Do you go to other members of the pit to see if your mini culture, mini society can handle it informally? Do you feel comfortable going to above the desk manager's head, let's say to a member of the hierarchy of the firm? How would you feel about that? Now you're taking it outside your own little society. You're perhaps going upstairs. Well, what if they take the side of the desk manager rather than you? What have you accomplished? Well, you've gotten yourself into hot water, but do you think that it would be meaningful? Would that be helpful? Well, what about the notion of going to OIA? They're here to help us and everything like that. But let me backtrack a little bit. Because one of the things that I'm now fearful of is people are going to say to me, well, wait, what are our, before you get to ethics, what are our legal obligations? Let me say this, and I don't want to end with this, but let me say it since it's the truth. You do not get into legal difficulty for the failure to come forward with the information. So long as you are not part of the activity itself, the failure to divulge will not get you, the failure to tell what the desk manager has asked you will not get you into legal difficulty. Being a witness does not make you part of the undertaking. Nor, in all honesty, is there a specific regulatory rule that makes you disclose. There are for lawyers in the state of Illinois, by virtue of what we call a canon of ethics. The Illinois Supreme Court has said we must report misconduct. So you are under neither a legal obligation or what we call a regulatory or rule obligation to come forward. But look, let's be honest. This is, after all, an ethics class. What we are talking about here is not what the law makes us do. It is a question of what we should do, of behavior we are striving to go to. When we first discussed the evolution of this hypothetical, this problem we're going over now, I looked at the sentence, "What do you do?" And initially I said to the people, wait a minute, we should change it to "What should you do?" After all, "What do you do?" implies that what we've always done. Perhaps it means we haven't learned from the past. If we changed it to "What should you do?" it clearly implies that we are thinking about our ethical responsibilities, trying to determine what is the best for us, what is the best for the CBOT, and what is best for the investing public and the economic world itself, since we are so tied to each other at this point. And when we talk about "what should you do," it means not what we have to do, but what we should do as part of an ethical profession. And if you can resolve this on your own with the simple confrontation, fine. But don't forget, what we want you to be encouraged to do is to seek the assistance of others, to go to the mentor if necessary, to go within the hierarchy of the firm, and yes, go to OIA. It is there to help this exchange and to help you. And in this way, well, let me put it this way. We left the "what do you do" because it is a good way to end the discussion of this hypothetical. But remember, as you leave the room, what we're really talking about is "what should you do?"